Right. Hello. Okay. So welcome everyone. Yeah. So this is the Early Career Researcher Sharing Hub. Okay. So welcome everyone, and thank you APCMN 2020 of having us. So just a little bit background of what this session is about. Yeah. So this is a platform to facilitate collaboration between postgraduate students and early career researchers and practitioners who are interested in community music practice. So for myself as a practitioner, moving on to academia, I'm always interested in seeing how we can make sure our findings can be useful and practical enough for the practitioners. So this platform is just an attempt to trying to bring practitioners and researchers together in order to unpack the tension and struggles between the gap. So at the end of this session, we are not really aiming for any solutions, but hopefully after the session, we will have a list of questions, which is trying to enhance opportunities to promote multidisciplinary interaction and broaden the scope of community music experience. So we have, as you can see, we have 5 practitioners and researchers here, including myself. So I thought we would just give a quick introduction, shall we? So maybe I will start with myself first. So my name is Gigi, and I'm a PhD candidate at Royal College of Music in London. So my main practice and my research is looking at how community music practice can be situated in school music education. So that's basically my background. So how about we have Diana next, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Diana. I'm a registered music therapist, practicing in Hong Kong recently and training in Australia and in US as a blended learner. So my practice is music centered and improvisational, and I use a lot of active music making in my practice. So I also do clinical side and also community music therapy.
Right. Who should we have?
Hi everyone. So I'm also a music therapist. I'm Michelle. I'm trained in UK and I'm now practicing in Hong Kong. So my approach is psychodynamic. And personally, I'm also an erhu, which is a Chinese instrument player. So I'm very interested in how to make use of Chinese music in my practice in Hong Kong.
Hi, I'm Melody, and currently I'm a PhD student major in cognitive neuroscience and neurological rehabilitation. And personally, I'm trained as an occupational therapist. And also, I'm a musician, and I play the piano and also Chinese Zima. And it's very interesting to be here, and very honored to be invited by Gigi that we can have interesting mingle here, like. When me, a cognitive neuroscientist who studies music listening, the neuromechanism per se, meeting all the clinicians here and showing their clinical experience and how music can be applied to the community. And yeah, I'm very happy to be here.
Great, it's good to have you guys. So Madalena Tan.
Oh yeah, sure. Hi, I am Madalena, and I'm a PhD candidate at HKU, University of Hong Kong. And I do, my research is focused on the choral music in Hong Kong. And through the lens of choral music, I look into identity negotiation and contestation. And my major research method is ethnography. So I do ethnographic research in Hong Kong. Hong Kong is my is the field, and but I'm also a practicing choral conductor, so I do practices alongside with my research practice. Thank you, Gigi.
Right, thank you. It's great to have all of you here. So let's get started. So for our session today, basically we will be doing, so we will be using the Google Jamboard, right? So each of us is going to give a short provocation on 2 main questions. So the first one is, what is the research landscape? So the tension and struggles of early career researcher in local community music field. And the second one is about the practice landscape. So the 2 main questions here. So we'll be using the Jamboard and doing, when we are taking turn and saying our provocation, we'll be dropping points here on the slide, and then so the participant can also see our thoughts. So at the end, we're hoping to provide a list of key questions that we think that it's related to the development of the field. Yeah. So to start with, I thought we just I really like this model. It's actually my supervisor's model, so Dave Camlin. So he has this model of saying it's called music in 3 dimensions. So I'm hoping to use this model to help us to kind of situate our local notion of community music practice. So as mentioned by Lee Higgins in 2012, so he was saying community music practitioners actually do not like the idea of defining the term because they think it actually limits the flexibility. However, during my practice, I found even sometimes without a clear definition, it's really difficult for us to do field research. I'm not sure whether you agree, because I was being regularly asked to articulate what community music is. And so I felt like there is an urgent need of a working definition to clarify and provide direction for the study rather than creating confusion. So I thought maybe to start with, how about we position ourselves? So what do you think community music practices? Is it more related to aesthetic side of music? So more presentational, so like high-end like concert, or is it more participatory, or is it more in social aspect? So in other words, it's like more like an intervention for different cases. So shall we? So we have a color code here, yeah. For those who are watching this video, we do have a color code here. So maybe let's spend some time in typing our thoughts in, shall we? Just a sentence or a few words will be fine. All right. Let's position. Where do you think community music is? Yeah. All right, it's exciting to get this Jamboard going. Hopefully it won't crash. Right. Wow. Right. Yep. Oh, that's so clever, using the post-it. I should have used the post-it as well.
Yeah.
I've typed it already. So hopefully, if you're watching this video, you're participating in our roundtable, you can also think about how would you position community music practice in this music in 3 dimension model. So how are you going to position the practice? Are you going to position it like more clear, close to presentation, or maybe it might not fit. These 3 strands might not fit what you're thinking. So maybe you want to put your definition outside the box, right? Who knows, right? Let's take a look. Right, so we have Melody was saying music as a language. Right, it's time already. Gosh, yeah, we're doing we have a very tight schedule, so we will time our contribution as well. Okay, so shall we talk about this or not really? Do we have time? Can we talk about this? We just take a look, right, real quick. So music as a language, this is from Melody, all right? And then I was thinking music is an inclusive and participatory musical activity. So it's more about, in my sense, about cultural democracy and conversation. So as a community music practice, it has to have elements of cultural democracy, yeah? Do you want to talk about your own view? We still have some time. Michelle?
I think it's more like just giving a space so that people can have a lot of communication and exchange, which is like in a musical way, which is actually quite broad.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So what about mixture? Is that from Mac? Is that?
From Diana. So
Oh, yeah.
I think it's more about like music as the communication, and it's also like including them in the community. So it's also about the sharing about their music thoughts or music, just simply music making.
Right. Melody, do you want to talk about your point as well? Sorry, I jammed in just
I
now.
guess music is a language, especially for people who have difficulties in expressing themselves. And we do find that music actually overlaps a lot of brain regions, so does language processing, but it doesn't 100% overlapping. So, which is interesting, so that music can actually like elicit different brain areas, so as to let people like autism who have language problem to communicate in a different way.
I think it's interesting because you put it in this side, is it more to aesthetic, while many of us put it towards the practical side. So is there any special reason that you put your definition closer to that side?
Yeah, I guess language itself, we see it as an art sometimes, right? It's like how to express yourself, like through some like music, for example. You need to like how to create the contour of the music,
Right.
how to use those melodies, and how to create them through music therapy. And I guess this is the aesthetic side of the language and also the music side. Yeah.
Thank you. Mac, what about your input?
Yeah, I think I'm with Melody actually. No doubt these are like the practical side is like important application of like the communal aspect of music. But often in research, we find in different regions, in the different cultural groups, when we say music, it actually means different things for them. So like we have a hard time when we describe, what are you hearing, or what does this particular melody reminds you of, or what emotion does it evoke you? And rather than describing the emotion, it's also important to describe like the semantic, the melodic aspect, or the relation between notes, so that we understand how the certain emotion or how certain memories are evolved. So and also like partially it's just a personal taste, actually personal preference, because like I do a lot of our archival work and doing like collecting music that is related to the community in order to understand the community. So instead of like going right into the community and like do a certain practice, or ask the participant like what kind of music you want to listen to. And other aspect is like the research aspect, which is some of the researchers doing, is to make sense of the musical landscape within a particular community. So so that's why I put it toward the left-hand side.
Yeah, that's great. I can see like within five of us, we already got like a really wide scope of like how we see community music is. So I'm guessing coming up we will have a really exciting discussion. All right. So all right. So let's move on to the first question. So we'll be talking about like the research landscape. So what are the tensions and struggles that as an earlier career researcher in local community music field? So I would start first. All right. So I'm going to share my struggle as during this PhD study. So, well, as I said, my current doctoral research is focusing on developing community music practice in Hong Kong. But then sometimes I found it's actually very easy for me to involve some bilingual elements from my thinking. So mainly including cultural issues that I need to stage when I start to generate idea to write my thesis. So what happened is I gradually notice issues that which I'm not aware of. So sometimes during the interview, when I interview the practitioner, a lot of the times I feel like they will use an English term to describe their practice. And when I ask them to describe it in Chinese, I found they actually would become silent. They were saying, well, actually, I don't know what I can say, right? And a lot of these moments happen. So, and then I began to question myself more. So what about, even for myself, when I do literature review, when I start my literature review, I would take for granted I would use Western literature, right? So I'd never go to literature written in Chinese. So I've been thinking, is there any discussion in Chinese context that might suggest alternative comments regarding the critical issue in my thesis? So for example, like the terms mentioned, like community, facilitation, practitioner, pedagogy. When I do my research, am I trying to use the Western lens to look at the activities in Hong Kong? But then now I'm working towards hopefully the end of my my thesis. So my current thought is I think community music is more like a social practice. So it should be a fluid and dynamic concept which embrace different practices for flexible purposing. So as a practitioner researcher, I would say my dilemma is continually be aware not to be affected by the Western notion and fall into the trap of dominating the scene. So if we are talking about community music development in Hong Kong, we do need to involve the local practitioner, because the involvement of the local practitioner is crucial. They are going to help us to map out a unique local community music scene. Yeah, so basically that's my sharing. Yeah. Thank you. Mac.
Yes, I need to tie myself, right? Okay, whoosh.
Right.
So thank you, Gigi. So actually, I want to speak further to Gigi's notion of Western lens, which is, as a bilingual researcher myself as well, is like often it is a struggle that we encounter, and also the role of language as a mediator. But also as well as a barrier in our academic research, because like we are using black and white languages to describe a three-dimensional and sometimes four-dimensional soundscape that we're experiencing. Mm-hmm. So this is a very difficult task for me to learn, and I'm still learning to do it. And so I'm going to share first some thought about how I echo with Gigi's observation, and then I will touch upon briefly on the gray area of the community music that I experience, especially in the choral music community, because they are sort of like in a gray area of community music. Some of them consider them as professional practitioners. Some of them consider as amateur or communal music makers. So, and finally, I will offer some criticism that I often face myself, and also how I navigate those criticism, and by being in between, quote unquote in between, so which I will further elaborate. So I'm a choral director and also a PhD candidate, and but the way I do it is in the very beginning of the research, I already know I cannot only focus on Cantonese or Chinese choral works and choral and choirs in my research. And all choral music and like collective singing practice in Hong Kong that is engaged in, there are like sacred music, choral society, social activism, like anthem singing, and like local ceremony and rituals. Like in all these fields, in all these scenes, choir is not only Chinese and not only Cantonese. So I echo with Gigi's observation in a sense that I encountered difficulty in translation and also lost in translation. And a slight difference from Gigi is that the missing bridges of like it's the meaning transmission, and also more accurately, I would say the construction of musical meaning in choral music making. So for instance, there are a lot of English speaking or English as a secondary language. They sing in English, they communicate in English, but they are ethnically Chinese, and they are very fluent in speaking Chinese. So what is the term of native language for Hong Kongers is very ambiguous. And let's jump a little bit of let's see. So about the challenges, that is the ethnic-based approach. So currently, I'm kind of challenging the ethnic-based approach in studying Hong Kong choral culture in relation to identities. So I also explore if localization of Western canons have ever happened. So whether there is a Western lens in Hong Kong's research and also in the field is questionable. So that's my take. And I also explore if local, because there are already the common practice period, composition, 12-tone, zeroism with Chinese literature, like all this musical language is already in the local choral music practice. So whether Western lens is the thing in Hong Kong, that I question. And in a way, to answer this question, I try to ask, what is sung into being when the locals sing? So I repeat, so what is sung into being? What identities, what notion of belonging is sung into being when the locals sing, instead of what they are singing and why they're singing that? So this is the way that I help to actually decolonize myself, and also like trying to see my own community from a fresh eyes, to be the insider and also the outsider. So that's what I call the in-between, and it's actually quite hard to do, which I will share more in an upcoming discussion with Gigi.
Thank you, Meg. Right. Okay. So yeah. So this is a contribution from me and Meg, but Michelle, Melody, and Diana, feel free to give us any input. Melody, do you have anything you want to add just before we? Yep.
It's very interesting, like observation that I even observed this in like educational psychology studies. That basically we can't. For example, I'm doing some executive function and also academic performance studies on my own, and it's in autumn. And recently, my researcher, my supervisor told me that don't put it the comprehension test as a Chinese one, and for those journals, because they will not accept us. Yeah, interestingly, why? Because I'm a Hong Konger and I'm studying in like a local population. And why is it like the language, the Chinese language, the key like that autism people is facing in Hong Kong? They can't communicate in Chinese, but they're better in English. So yeah, exactly. So like for even in music studies, like maybe it's because Hong Kong is like a cosmopolitan place, and it's built on like Western culture.
Yeah.
And people think in a way in Western, but the identity is ambiguous, and I really agreed with what Mac has shared. Like, what is the identity? Like, how can it be represented in music, rather than just analyzing all the things we interpret? Yeah, the more emotional side is not addressed, I guess. Yeah, that's my reflection. And,
right.
Yeah.
That's great. So when you talk about identity, then it just gives a perfect space for Mac. Maybe you can talk about more on your in between, that idea.
Yeah, sure. I guess well, when I'm in the field and when I ask people, it's really rare that you ask people like, who do you think you are, or what kind of identity construction, or how do you project your self-identity? Like, identity is a troublesome term, because like is a troublesome terms in a way that because people like rarely articulate their self-identification with language. So they only do it with their like weight, wearing like what they eat, what kind of music they listen to, and what kind of style or fashion style they echo to. So it's all in their body language, their living, their lifestyles, things like that. So back into our focus of today's discussion, that is music, and is really hard to say you're born in Hong Kong, then you understand erhu, for instance. So I often encounter that when I study in the state and say, oh, can you explain how to play erhu for me, which I don't know. And I know there are like Chinese instrument players here in the room, and like I really would love like learn something that like people think is related to my identity, but then it just, the way that I grow up, it wasn't like that, right? It's a beautiful, like a beautiful instrument, stuff like that. So I constantly remind myself as a researcher. So when I approach someone, identity is of course complex, of course polysemic, is of course multi-identities. Like we're in a modern world, it is like that already. But the interesting thing, or the thing that we want to look into, is how they articulate their sense of belonging through artistic expression, and what is what I call like spider web of those expressions. Like it could be Western, it could be classical, it could be pop song, it could be Bob Dylan, like it can be anything. Then after this understanding, then we slowly grow the communal side of the music making experience, because there are often there will be overlapping within the community group, and there will be individuality within a particular group.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, in my study, I look in 5 case study. I look at 5 practitioners practice. So what happened is it's just like what you said. Originally, it's very hard for me to find overlapping practice. Like when you mentioned when you in different groups there must be overlapping practice. But at the beginning, it was really hard for me to figure that out, because all of them think they have a unique practice. Like they think they are innovative, and they think that throughout in Hong Kong they are the only ones who do this kind of thing. So, but interesting, when when I try to do my analysis, I actually find there are actually overlapping practice. But how do I find it? It's actually traced back from their background, so their training background. So it's like, yeah, it's just exactly like what you said. It's like from the background, and I can look, and then I can develop the practice. Yeah, interesting. But I also want to share, maybe it's not really related, but I just type it in the Jamboard. Is originally when I design my research, I kind of want to find community music practitioner as my case study participant. But then I found actually no one recognize themselves as a community music practitioner. In UK, this is a very common term. Like people will say, oh, I'm a community music practitioner. But here in Hong Kong, even we find their practice is similar to what we think is community music practice, but they still don't want to be identified as this identity. So yeah, just another thing to share when you mentioned in between.
Interesting. Like I want to ask Gigi.
Yeah.
Like, what do they refer themselves to?
Well, a lot of them were saying self-employed musician, freelance musician. And I think this is interesting, because what they think is if they have this freelance musician in identity, they actually keep they can be a performing musician, and they can be a teaching musician. So a lot of them were thinking, still they think if you mainly do teaching or workshopping, facilitation, it's like a lower class musician. So you have to keep the performance practice. So that's why they were saying I'm freelance musician, in order to give the flexibility of like how you can see the identity. Yeah, but this is it gives them the in between. I'm not sure whether I'm interpreting your in between correctly, but to me I feel like it's like give them like a in between kind of platform for them to do more in that.
So you also replied to me like the East meets West thing. Yeah, I guess this like the in between thing. It's like a very, I don't know whether that's a good or bad. It's kind of giving us some leeway.
Yeah, true.
To do things. Yeah, in both sides, for example, in multiple aspects. But yeah, that's very special to Hong Kong people, I guess.
Well, it's actually.
But a quick add-on, sorry. Gigi.
Yeah, sure.
But I know it's time when we have to move on. But for the in between, it's kind of like it's something old already in between actually. But we are looking for something other than in between. But like less philosophical. But like talking back to community music, and then the Chinese community music, there are different translations like 社區音樂 and like 社區 and community doesn't really translate actually. And also for community, there is a sense of 街坊 involved, meaning like you're like playing with people on the street, not in a concert hall, which is not true, but that is the impression. So like for the community in Cantonese language, there is grassroots the feeling of it, as some musician takes time to get into the scene. Yeah,
there's a perception of like really grassroots. Yeah. That's happened in my research as well. But anyway, it's really rich discussion there, but we got to move on to our next topic now. So we have, after we talk about research landscape, of course, we're going to talk about the practice landscape, right? So who should we start with? I don't really know. Anyone? Start with your provocation. Michelle, do you want to start with first?
Yep.
Maybe? Yeah.
Okay, so Actually, what I'm thinking is quite related to what you have been talking about, like the East meets West. And personally, my experience is I do my placement in the UK, so I meet a lot of community, like people, like elderly children. But what I find interesting is in our kind of youth generation, our music preference and our kind of our taste or even our background are so diverse. So we don't really identify like a strongly like your Western music background, even though they're living in the UK. So some of them might interested in other musical styles. So I try to invite the elderly to see how Chinese music is like in their point of view. So, and I also, of course, now I'm practicing in Hong Kong, so I also make use of Chinese as well as Western music in my practice, also with elderly. So I make kind of like a comparison to share with everyone. So when I was in the UK, the elderly really show high acceptance towards Chinese music as well as my Chinese instrument erhu playing. So they can really describe how the Chinese music brought them like peace, beautiful imagery. And what I found when they heard the familiar Western music, they really start interpreting the music right after, like what past memories emerged after they hear the music. And I think it's the good thing about using familiar music that they can really bring up memory as well as how they can really play around the music because they know the music. For example, when I work in an elderly care home, and then there is old lady who heard the song "What a Wonderful World," and then she never sang in the session, but suddenly she sang "What a Horrible World," and everyone is shocked. But I found, wow, actually using the familiar music, it works in that way. Like different surprise comes up. But then when I use Chinese music or using Chinese instrument, they really just focus on the music, not being sidetracked by all the memories or like what they want to add on the music. So put it the other way around, when I'm working back in Hong Kong, Chinese music has always been like really useful to bring up memories for the elderly here. Especially how they are willing to engage in the music because kind of like a culture thing. So they're less willing to try new things or they're being shy to try it. So using Chinese music is a very good tool. But in the meantime, when I invite Western music to them, they actually being quite open, and they can also do the same way like the what I encounter in the UK. So they really appreciate the music, can tell what imagery comes up after they hear the music. So that's kind of makes me think, oh, maybe the familiarity of Chinese music can utilize as a tool to share memories and create like music jamming, because that helps people to being brave enough to try to play around it. But how some new, not only Western or Chinese, I mean all kind of music or the less familiar music actually can be useful in bringing like freshness or just free their imagination about the music. So yeah, so that's some of my thoughts related to this idea. So
thank you.
How
Michelle.
about, yeah.
Go ahead. You can invite others.
Yeah, I'm interested in how Diana think about music, community music as a music therapist.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, Michelle. So it's very interesting to listen to each of you. I use a lot of improvisations in my practice, and like because of my training, and I found it's the acceptance difference about the improvisation in our culture and in Western culture, because like in Western culture, like in my placements, there were a lot of people just jamming in naturally, freely in the music, and they didn't really ask why we do this and that. And but in our culture, it's a bit strange for them if we didn't say anything, or we didn't make it a little bit more structured and safe to get them into the improvisations. So I think it's about the culture and the values of our like our Hong Kong community. So it also happened not only in certain age, but like so in youth and in adults and in elderly population, it happens in that way as well. But it's also about the personality thing. So I think our culture, the value is more about having rights or wrong, or valuing things about like quantity, like a lot of things that with judgment. So in the community like music or community music therapy, when we just do active music making, it also has that effect that how people view music in that way. So having the concept non-judgmental, no rights or wrong, just freely and feel ourselves into the music really helps the participant like really enjoyed and really make music through themselves and through themselves and linking with other people. So I think it's a lot of things about the culture and the values in the music making. And also I found elderly like in like the what sorry, I didn't count my time actually.
Yeah, fine. I'm thinking, yeah.
Okay. So how much time
Let's say 1 minute maybe.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So also about the elderly, I think the elderly like who was like about who are above 80, like music making seemed to be something different. It's like music making, like music engagement. It's more about like to making music together, and they enjoy more a lot of the togetherness rather than like different individuality, like self-expression. I think it's also about the culture as well, like how they view themselves, so related to the identity and also to the community as well. So like in youths, they have like more diverse, yeah, like echoing to Michelle's observation as well. They have like diverse music preferences, and they have been more into like expressing themselves in like music and finding their music identity in the in a group like so I think more about so I was talking more about the practice side, music practice side, and I think in Hong Kong community music development, it's also important to think in a way how the musicians and how the organization, like in welfare side, to view what is music and what is community music. Yeah.
Thank you. Right, can we have Melody?
Sure. And yeah, I'm fortunate that I can hear from music therapists who use music daily as a therapeutic tool. And for occupational therapists, we do a lot of dementia, like interventions. I mean, interventions for dementia. And there is a term called reminiscence therapy for us. And what is reminiscence therapy? Basically, it means as its term. Um, they think about the past when they have some purposeful activity regarding their culture. And so Cantonese opera is often used by occupational therapists, and which is for like stimulating their brain to recall their past and expressing themselves. And that's what echoed to Michelle's speech, like using those familiar music to stimulate the memory system to maybe, I guess, as a maintenance, like to like slow down their decline. And at the same time, we also use music like as a listening tool for like people with autism, people with schizophrenia, for them to communicate in a group. So rather than like music making as what Diana has shared about, I'm more familiar with the music listening component. And yeah, what I have seen when I was an occupational therapist is that music is indeed powerful. Like even listening to music can trigger people's memory, can have clinical effects in terms of improving their attention, in terms of improving their memory, in terms of improving their mood. Maybe when we listen to music, and which is of our choice, what we preferred, we can like also feel that we're in a more relaxed state. I mean, physiological state. And I start to investigate why, in terms of the neuromechanisms of why music listening can actually help us in improving our whatever. Like what I've talked about is cognitive and also emotional aspects, and also the stress reduction. And what I found is through a meta-analysis, I got like 50 experiments showing that when people listen to music, different types of music, their brain actually activates a lot, especially in the frontal regions where we think, the temporal regions where we listen, but also in the limbic system where we feel and we remember. And yeah, and also the different types of music and different genres of music activate differently in terms of regulating our arousal level, like making us more relaxed versus making us having a more heightened state of like and maybe becoming more energetic per se. And this is like what I found in studies and research that actually supports that music listening is a general rather than specific remedy, like to regulate our arousal rather than like stimulating the memory. But I must admit that like just now, for example, Michelle or Diana shares that actually music, they actually carry different identity. The role of identity to different people is different. And this is what I found like very difficult to be addressed in research, especially in science research. Like I have to control all the variables to like take out all the confounders, like to do a group analysis showing that okay, music actually benefits the system. But like echo to also Gigi and also Meg sharing that the music has the very unique, the uniqueness of music is that the identity of music is like what we perceive as same music is actually different in different people. Like I don't know whether I conclude this well or not, but yeah, this is some food for thoughts that maybe we can discuss later. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, maybe we can discuss now. Right, because now we have a we kind of like running out of time though, so maybe we will have like a I will time it this time really. Yeah, we'll have a quick 3 minutes discussion on our input just now, shall we? 3 minutes. Yeah, I'm timing now. Ooh. Yep. All right. Anyone would like to start first? Wow, you're wasting 10 seconds. Huh? All right. No. Okay. Maybe I'll just start first. There are so many thoughts. I'm not sure how to start really. Well, my main thing is because when maybe it's because Diana and Michelle and Melody, you guys are like therapists, right? So to me, it feels like when we talk about practice, it suddenly becomes music is always as an intervention and music as a tool. So I was thinking, is that what community music practice is? What about music itself? So we all gather here, I think we all believe music is powerful to us, right? But we seem to be using music. So is that what the practice is? Yeah, this is just
Yeah, my practice is music centered, so I see music as a communication and as a language as well. So I think it's more like how you have described, like Gigi and Mac. And so I'm not seeing it as an intervention. And it's more about like how simply it's in a non-verbal and a musical gesture of interaction and communication. Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
guess. Oh, sorry. Yeah, keep on. Yeah,
keep going, Melody.
going. Yeah, I just found like what Diana you have just said, like, and also echo to Gigi's question. Yeah, indeed, we love to use music as a tool. Yeah, and I guess like why, like, even though we in mind think that music is a language or music as a communication tool. Oh my God, my light has been off because of
but
my
we can still hear you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, good. And yeah, I'm in black, but it's okay. So I guess music is kind of being utilized as a modality instead of pure enjoyment. Like, I'm thinking whether pure enjoyment actually exists. Yeah, that's my doubt. Yeah, and maybe I'm also a therapist. I feel like music is as a tool, but I think maybe Gigi would disagree with me because yeah, you are from a more appreciation or education side. So what do you think?
Well, not really. I actually, it reminds me of Christopher Small's definition of music. So he has a saying called "music king." So he was saying music is a verb but not a noun. So just as you said, so we have to music. You have to experience it. So whether you have pure enjoyment, pure enjoyment is also a process. So like you have to listen to the music and you enjoy it. So it's always a process. So it's time. How can it be? All right. Anyway, okay. So I'm sure we can have more discussion. Maybe we'll have another round table, right, next year or like coming. So let's yeah. How about this? We as I said at the beginning, right, we are not going to look for a solution, but we're going to have more questions, right, at the end. So how about we all type some of thought that we all have after this discussion? Maybe some questions to ask, right, which helps to facilitate the development of the field, maybe. Right, so if you are watching this roundtable meeting video, maybe in your mind, you can think about some questions and you can type in this is a Zoom meeting, so you can type in the chat box and then we can all document all these questions and maybe it will be useful for a further research. Right, I love hearing all this clicking sound. It's so soothing. It's like that's a lot of input there. All right, so yeah, let's take a look. Right. So while we are typing, maybe we can talk about our question as well, and then we have to end the video because it's time already. Okay.
So what I type is actually how to organize or generalize after talking so many different way of using music. For me, I'm still seeing it as a tool with different purpose at the end. So especially towards the new generation who has such a wide music experience. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. For myself, oh, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I was just trying to, sorry, for myself, I mean, we talk about how culture affects the development of the practice. So in my mind, I was thinking it's very crucial to recognize the local practitioners' practice. So, but I was thinking, how do we position the work of the practitioner who work in the field? Because now we kind of like, the field is rich, right? So how can we position them in order to recognize their work, right? Yeah, anyone? Mac, do you want to go for the next one?
Yeah, I'm thinking like positioning is always a question across like every generation asks this question because because the shape and like nuances in our community keep changing. So like I really appreciate Gigi's question because this is like a urgent and necessary question to ask. But I also want to pose, I write in Black. So I'm also thinking like what we experience in Hong Kong, is there anything that we can keep on sharing with other metropolitan researcher and practitioner in metropolitan areas? Because obviously we're going to face a similar complexity in the structure of our society. And this is just for fun. I really hope we can have a new translation for community music.
Absolutely, yes.
And I need some like expert in translation to help me, because like community is such a beautiful word in English language, and in Chinese, like we have to find the right word.
Yeah, agree. Okay, anyone? Melody or Diana, do you want to go for this?
I'm thinking how to like making or enhance peer support in the music facilitation skills in Hong Kong, like any peer support, and so we can find some common grounds about community music, and maybe especially it's through our own experience as well, like how to make music together as a community, maybe practitioners or musicians, and so we could like could also use this experience in our different parts of community. So how can we do that?
Important to have peer support. Yeah, Melody, do you want to?
Yeah, I'm kind of like just echo to the last question, like how to make people really enjoy and share their feelings through music rather than using it as a tool, as a communication. I mean, communication is genuine, right? When you want to share something, you use a tool. I mean, like for example, language. You use the language you are familiar with. You share your thoughts with others genuinely. But how can we use music in this way, like such that everyone can communicate with music, like this language, with different people, which is a cross-border? And I think this might be like a good direction for bridging between like normal healthy people and also with people with different diseases.
With music inclusion.
Yeah.
Well, that's another question. Then what is inclusive, right? Inclusive. Yeah. I'm not going to continue this. Otherwise, it will be another conference maybe. Okay. So yeah, thank you everyone. I think this is great, right? We've got a lot of input and a lot of food for thought to go with. Yeah. So that's great. All right. So well done. Yeah. Okay. Let's give a big round of applause.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, we'll continue this chat during the APCMN conference. All right. So yeah. All right. See you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye.